We live in a world of differences. And not only that, we actually tolerate the differences in a way we never did before. You might even say we embrace them. We like difference in our culture, and it's rather exciting because I grew up in a world where we didn't tolerate difference. Everybody had to be the same, or at least the same within their particular group. Now, that brings with it, I think, a certain progress because it's freedom. It's good for people. There were times in Australia in the past where creative people used to say, well, I've got to leave Australia in order to blossom. Not anymore, I don't think anyway. But that progress brings with it a certain tension. No organisation will thrive if every individual is doing her or his own thing. Individuality has to respect communality, and communality has to respect individuality. So that in any organisation there are two dynamics happening at the one time, and they are in a sense irreconcilable, but we have to live with them both together. On the one hand, we want the talents, the individuality, the uniqueness of this person to be brought to bear on the group and to contribute to the group. And I would say in more than 40 years of community life as a religious priest, the one thing that I think is necessary for a community to flourish is respect for the individual. You will not get healthy community life if there's not respect for healthy individual life. If it's just individuality, however, it just becomes individualistic and you lose community. So there has to be a fostering and a nurturing and a development of the common good. Now, in a Catholic institution, that has very specific boundaries to it. There are limits to what can happen within a Catholic institution, such as a healthcare institution. I think everybody knows that. Sometimes it needs to be said, but it also needs to be respected. So how does a Catholic institution maintain its Catholicity, its worldview, the common good, at the same time as it nurtures and respects and develops the individual talents of all those who make up the community? I don't think there's any resolution to it as if it was a problem that can be solved, but I think there's ways of living with it. And I've learnt something from watching people, having the privilege to watch people as they go to the altar to get married. I ask people who invite me to share that privilege with them to have 5 sessions, and we sit and I facilitate a conversation as best I can. And what I've noticed in watching the body language and the conversation is this: that when you get two people who love each other deeply, and let's be honest, before you're married, the love hasn't been quite tested yet, but it can be very real all the same. You see two people who love each other dearly, the love fosters both communion of life and otherness. That the love of the man for the woman enables the woman to become who she is, quite other than him. It's not possessive, it's not entrapping, it's not what I would call Velcro love. All love, if it's real, it's liberating. And the same, if the woman loves the man, he becomes a man, this man. So you've got an amazing paradox here, that in becoming two, they become one. In becoming one, they become two. I think this might hold a secret in any organisation for fostering and respecting individuality and communality. Respecting differences, even as we promote the common good. I would focus on relationships, therefore, not on doctrine, not on moral injunctions, not on ethics. They are essential, they are very important, but I think they will only make sense in the context of relatedness. Where the individuals are respected, they will listen and they will want to know what the Catholic ethos is, what the Catholic ethical boundaries and vision is. And they will deal well with that because it is a very intellectually substantial vision that we find within the Catholic Church. If we simply impose that without taking care of relationships, without respecting the individual who may not share our particular worldview, we can't expect them to be respectful of our particular worldview if we don't respect theirs. So let me offer 4 little definitions that speak of the Catholic tradition, which it points to the common good, but also speak of individuality, which respects the unique person who's going to be one of those who constitutes the community. I think a good way to think of spirituality, and a hospital has a spirituality, every organisation does. A good way to think of spirituality is simply living relationships with the more than, the absolute, the big picture. Call it what you like. I call it God. I call it the great mystery. Secondly, relationship with myself. Thirdly, relationships with other human beings. Fourthly, relationships with the world at large. If those four sets of relationships are happening well, healthily in me, in the other people in the group, then the spirituality of the group will be healthy. We don't have to share the same articulation of those relationships. We don't all have to think the same, believe the same. But if I know that there's some respect in the other for the more than, because we're going to be dealing with people, and very often people in extremis, people where mortality is impinging on their lives, that is often a time when people need some bigger picture, and that's the Catholic ethos can provide that, and that must be respected, even if I don't share that person's vision. So that also the relationship with oneself, there's a very certain dynamic happens. If I've got conflicts in me, if I'm carrying pain that I'm not dealing with, and I come to work with you, almost certainly that pain's going to get into our relationship. If we don't transform our individual pain, our individual lives, we'll transmit it. And that makes for a toxic environment. If I come to work and I'm all angry, I'm all conflicted, I'm all anxious, somehow or other that's going to leave its imprint on the environment, on the other people. And the relationships with other people obviously tie in with all the other relationships, but on a workaday basis, is there anything else more important in an organisation than the relationships between the people? Obviously, we've got our talents, our professional skills, our job to be done, and we expect that to be done professionally. I think that's taken for granted. What is often overlooked is the relationships between the people. You know yourself, I know, everybody knows that what makes work an attractive place to come to is the human relationships, how people get on with one another. If I'm not affirmed, appreciated, I'm not going to want to turn up. I'm not going to give them my best. I'm going to turn up begrudgingly. You won't get the best of my talents. I will do what I have to do and go. If we want a life-giving, dare I say it, a healing environment, we must, as Jesus said, love one another. And I think another way of saying love one another is relate well. We are, because we're human, in relationships, make sure it works. I think that in essence is the great commandment, not only in Christianity, but in all the great religious traditions. Love one another. Take care. Be compassionate. Be patient. Be forgiving. Now, a lot of that, again, let me reiterate, depends on how I relate with myself. If I'm not compassionate with myself, forgiving with myself, I'm not going to be compassionate or forgiving with other human beings. I will tend to be the same with them as I am with me. The fourth area of relationship is not so well appreciated. It's the relationship with the environment, with river, with trees, with dogs, with cats, with the general world in which we live. It seems to me a healthy human being has that fourfold relatedness happening all the time and with growing energy and vision and commitment. So I'm connecting with the bigger picture, the transcendent, the mystery, God, however you name it. I'm connecting with myself. I'm connecting with other human beings. I'm connecting with the world in which I live. Just imagine, if you will, a society, an organisation where that's happening with everybody in it all the time. It's exciting to even think about it. What brings us down, and this is not so exciting to think about, but think of the organisations that aren't happy places. It's the very opposite. The relationships aren't good. So relationships are universal to human beings. They're not special to any particular group. If you were to say the characteristics that best suit the environment to raise a child, what would you say? You'd say things like honesty, care, love, forgiveness, challenge, all those sort of things. They are ways of relating, healthy ways of relating. You wouldn't say violence, lying, unforgiveness, nastiness. That would be ridiculous. We all know as if by instinct, this is what it means to be human. I think the moral vision of Jesus Christ and the moral vision we hope to radiate and pursue within our Catholic institutions is about relationships. Pure and simple, most basically it's about relationships. We have our theology about that, we have our ethical vision about that, but they are ways of interpreting and articulating what is most fundamental. On the ground, on a daily basis, you can actually not know the theological interpretation or not agree with the theological interpretation, but you can get on well with people. And that's really the essence of a spirituality that is profoundly and foundationally Catholic, and I think universal. Catholic in the best sense of the word.